Funded by 700 producers, handlers, and importers, the Watermelon Board promotes the year-round availability of watermelon. With menu penetration at nearly 16% and consumers interested in more watermelon on menus, America's favorite melon has a lot of room for growth. Watermelon's flesh, juice, and rind bring a unique color, flavor, and texture to any dish. Cooking techniques such as smoking, taste affinities like tahini, and flavor contrasts such as harissa help tell watermelon's versatility story. The board offers front and back of house support to place more watermelon on menus. Visit watermelon.org for menu inspiration.
Welcome to the ACF Chefs Forum. We appreciate all you tuning in today for this webinar on contemporary barbecue and global flavors. This webinar is sponsored by the National Watermelon Promotion Board, whose mission is to increase demand for watermelon. Watermelon and modern barbecue and global smoke are a natural fit. Think of beans and proteins with watermelon barbecue sauce, global spice pairings, refreshing watermelon tea, and don't forget those crunchy rind pickles and slaws on the side. Visit watermelon.org for more information from them. ACF's excited to have an expert here with information just for you, the leaders of the food service industry. Before we begin, as a note, we'll be answering as many of your questions as possible after the presentation. Please use the chat function to collaborate with other viewers and use the Q&A function anytime during the session to pose questions to today's speakers. Let's get the discussion going on in the chat by telling us where you're tuning in from today. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Christopher Tanner, American Culinary Federation Executive Director. Let's meet today's presenters. Chef Edward Adel, CEC, AAC, has been a culinary professor at Johnson County Community College since 2010. He's a dedicated member of the American Culinary Federation, where he has earned a certified executive chef designation, serves as an ACF certified culinary judge, and supports the Youth Culinary Team USA as a coach and advisor. His commitment to excellence is evident in the multitude of awards he's earned, such as gold and silver medals from ACF sanctioned competitions and notable achievements in the world of competitive barbecue, where he's competed for 17 straight years at the American Royal Barbecue Competition, earning over 200 ribbons and clinched multiple state barbecue championship titles. Assisting him today during today's presentation is ACF Chef Russ Muehlbe, CEC, who's currently a culinary professor at Johnson County Community College as well. At this time, I'll pass the presentation over to Chef Adel. Take it away, Chef.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kansas City. Glad everybody's here. Today, we're going to talk about barbecue from a Kansas City, KCBS kind of mix there, and how that globally fits into a lot of different cuisines. I have a recipe that I put up, and so you can see how that fits in. We're going to talk about that, how those spices and that stuff blends with barbecue. Russ here is going to help me do that. We're going to also take our pork. We're going to do some injection, talk about that, talk about seasoning, rubs, and spices, and what the effects of the different ingredients do to the pork as it's smoking. We're also going to take a few moments and look at our smokers. Kansas City, we use a lot of offset style smokers. Other parts of the country, they do something different. These that we have today in particular are reverse smoke. So you can see that the smoke stack and the fire on the same side of the smoking unit. So we'll discuss that a little bit too. First off, I'm going to start about and do some fabrication and go through, today we're going to focus on pork butt. So, or pork shoulder, right, the top part of the pork shoulder. So, and I have a piece here that I've taken and I just made a few incisions here just to try and show you what we're going to do. So, if I can turn this around, you can see here we're going to take this piece right here that's part of the bottom part of the blade there. As it goes into the pork loin, right, here's the collar, right? In the barbecue world, we would call this the money muscle, okay? So, and I'm going to show you how this works. And so this piece here, right, is very tender. So as we take this apart and we have three different pieces, this one here, most of the time, we just pull out of the barbecue. For KCBS, you have to have at least 4 pounds. So we take this out. This piece here is just like a pork loin. You could take it and grill it off, marinate it, slice it, make medallions, cut it, real thin, use it for a stir fry, wok. So anyway, so that is a great piece. It does have a tendency to get a little bit drier inside when you do pulled pork or we're doing the money muscle. So we usually, or I do, I think Russ also does, pulls that out, okay? So, but just to make sure you can see this, right? So we can see where the money muscle is. We can see where we have these fibers that run right along here. This particular pork butt is nice. Sometimes they have a little bit of silver skin left on there, so I might trim that off. But today, this one here seems to be cleaned up a little bit more. We can see here where that money muscle is right there. Or not the money muscle, where that cushion is right there next to the money muscle, okay? And so what we want to do is I want to make an insert, and I want to go right along the blade, right? So this bottom part of the blade here, the inside, it doesn't have that weird little loop-de-loop on the inside like this top piece does, right? So it has that little curved piece in there. So you'll see later on, we smoke this with the blade on it, and then it'll be tender. We can just pop that right out so we don't lose any of that meat in there. So also get a little bit more flavor. So we just come along here. Now we can see right here on the top, you can see this line right here, right? And that's where that money muscle starts. So we can see how it goes around. We want to just hit that seam there, okay? Now again, there's a lot of different people who barbecue, and they barbecue many different ways. And so this is not the only way to cut a pork butt. It's just the way that I prefer, right? So and when we do this, we're trying to look at this muscle here too, right? That, we want to slice that later and have some nice pieces. So we want to make sure when we're doing this, we're following that around. And we don't want to disconnect it, right? And then, of course, we're going to come across the top here and take this back. And so this piece here, right, you can see how we just follow that seam, right? And then I just take this out. So we can see how this is a nice piece of meat, right? Let's trim it up a little bit. And it's great for, like I said, for grilling, right? So you can take and make a little medallion out of it. You can slice it thin, stir fry, that type of stuff. It works out really good. So it's tender. It does have a tendency to get a little bit dry, so I usually try to pull that out. Now this here then still makes its minimum weight of 4 pounds for the KCBS. So if I was going to smoke for competition, I would begin like this, okay, and open, okay? And then later on we would separate and fabricate it into different pieces. This right here, right, the money muscle, the collar, and I'm going to take this off because today we're just going to worry about this a little bit more. So we have the collar here, right, or the money muscle. So I think you're going to find that this piece is going to start to become a little bit more popular. So I was working with a few people from different companies, and I was talking to chefs that work in fine dining rooms, and as they're looking for different pieces of meat that have a, you know, a cheaper value per pound, right, cheaper cost per pound, they're starting to move to this piece here because it's so tender. In the barbecue world for, you know, the last 30 years, we call it the money muscle. And so we know that it has this ability to be tender, cooked all the way. And so I think that other fine dining chefs are starting to take this from a cost standpoint and utilize it and grill it basically almost like a pork chop, right? Today we're going to take it and inject it, and then we're going to add some spices to it. Russ is going to show you that, but you can see how that piece there looks, right? So I would maybe try and make it just a little bit more even, and you know, we might even tie it a little bit, okay? So we want to just try and make it like a nice little round tube so that we can make some nice medallions, right, later on, okay? So then we have this other piece here. This is the, you know, the top of the blade, okay? And so I leave the bone on. I do trim it up a little bit, try to get a little bit of this more tough silver skin off underneath here. But this is along the blade. You can see that this is the blade part right here, okay? So then I might just trim a little bit, try to make sure that later on that I don't have any tough pieces. And I would remove anything like that. So any of these blood vessels, sometimes around the pork shoulder here, this pork butt, you have these blood vessels, right? But this fat on the top, this cap, right, that I want to leave, okay? There's a little bit of a thin slice here that would probably, you know, burn, and so we might trim it up a little bit just so that it when it cooks and it comes out, it's going to look like this nice square piece later on. When we pull this bone out, right, we can make a nice slice. And I'll show you what that looks like later on, because I have some already cooked for you. So we'll work on that. So these are the two pieces that Russ is going to work on today with his injection and rubs, right? And then, all right, I think we're ready to do some injection.
Oh yeah.
Ready to
Oh yeah.
get that thing going? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So like a little bit about the money muscle. Really, it's not such a secret anymore. Eddie and I have been cooking for 30 years, and back when we first started, the money muscle was our secret. It's pretty much in mainstream online now, so you see it everywhere. Another reason for opening this pork butt up is we can actually create bark all the way around this thing. And part of the presentation in the pork category, we absolutely love to have some nice dark bark that brings flavor, that brings color, that brings texture into our presentations. And you'll see some of those at the end of the day. But so from a money muscle standpoint, I try to go with the grain in my injections, and so there's a multitude of devices that are available for creating this scenario. Now, this particular injector here is really like, it works in both directions. So I can pull it and it's pumping out, and I can push it and it's pumping out. So, really the main objective for this is to just bring that flavor inside of the muscle that's a little bit dense. It'll help start the marination process, because this is obviously a wet marinade that is going to be internal, and then we're going to complete that with a dry marinade external. And there's 1,000 recipes for both, and really it's a matter of practice and timing. Practice, timing, and temperature all affect the end piece. And so, really, like, I take recipes and I look up 5 different recipes, and I look at the like items, and I come up with my own recipe most of the times. 30 years, I have a basic set of seasoning blends that I typically use, but for the most part, I'm always trying to reach outside the box and do something different. The barbecue world they do that every weekend. Somebody is stretching, they're just stretching the limits. And so new techniques are developed as we speak. And so, it's a fun thing. We can learn something today, but this time next year, it may be old news, and something else may be trendy and working effectively and that's really from a competition standpoint. And, most of you know that competition is where we grow and where things evolve. And there's no different in barbecue as well. So I'm just going to go. This injector really manages a lot of material quickly. So you're going to have spots that are really strong and that are going to absorb it, and it's going to swell up. And then you're going to have spots that are really weak, and it's going to squirt out. So you just have to be, it just has to.
It's a messy process sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just goes everywhere. We had a smaller little injector and I broke it the first time I used it. So now I got the mega one that I use for larger pieces of meat. So that's what we're doing today. So anyway.
And then, so I've made a piercing into the muscle itself. And when I pull this out, there's going to be a little pressure behind it. So when I pull this out, I like to put my finger over that hole and then work into the next spot where I want to inject, okay? It just kind of helps like that pressure to release a little bit into the muscles, and then I start with my next spot. It just depends on how you feel about how much product you need to put in, but this is like pumping up a tire, and I can see it pumping up. To me, that's enough product that comes in. So I'm really gonna do about 4 equal sections on the money muscle itself.
Yeah. So for this particular brine and stuff, you can use many different things. I have one, or the one that I made was a pre-mixed brine. There's several different companies out there that have them, but what I did is you have to taste the brine a little bit when you make it, because sometimes their ratios are really, really salty, too salty for me. The other thing I do also is I cut it about half water, or it could be stock too. Pork stock would be really good, and then half apple juice. So for us, right, this could be watermelon juice too. You can make a watermelon puree and put that in there as well. That could be a nice, fun way to incorporate watermelon into it. But the brine itself, right, we want to make that. I usually heat it a little bit and then cool it down and then strain it so that it goes through the filter well on your pump, your injection pump. And then also, the timing. How long do you put it in there for? 4, 6, 8 hours. That all depends on the ratio of how much or how intense your brine is. So that's all kind of things that you have to work out in your recipes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. So in addition to that, we're going to put a dry rub on the outside of this. So your brine has to be in a, if your dry rub is a salty forward dry rub, then your brine should not be a salty forward brine. There should be a balance between your salt and your seasonings, okay? So on this top half, I'm gonna go in the direction of the mussels. Once again, the mussels are going in this direction. So I'm gonna, and we don't really use the whole pork butt from a presentation standpoint. So we don't really worry about everything tasting the same in that manner. We know the parts that are going to show us the best bark. We know the parts that are going to show us the best tenderness, and then also we know the parts that are going to show us the best presentation elements as well, because in the competition circuit, it's taste, tenderness, and appearance.
And then also, to talk about brine, the brine we're talking about, we're not brining so we're making like corned beef. It's not that harsh. It's not that long. We're doing it very subtly to try and open up the pores of the protein so that it will accept the smoke and accept that flavor, accept the flavor of our base, our glaze, whatever we're putting on there. So our sauce, however that is. So that's what, that's also to retain moisture, but we also want to try and get those pores to open up. We don't necessarily want it to be, so overly brined it's like a corned beef in any way. So.
Okay, so these two pieces are internally injected with a brine, a marinade, a wet marinade, and now it's time to present the dry marinade to the exterior piece of this. And like Chef Eddie mentioned earlier, this whole process, the sooner you can get it done, the better your product is going to taste at the end of the day. 8 to 12 hours would be an awesome situation to be in when it comes time to finish smoking, okay? So, we all kind of know how to season, but, for the people that are just in their beginning stages of seasoning, we just want to make sure the dry rub is even all the way around and end to end. So we're going to just sprinkle. I can put my hand on each side and keep it from falling off and pull it in. And we just want to get a good, even distribution all the way around this. And nothing heavy, nothing light. there are opportunities down the road. If we're going to take this 8 to 10 hours in the smoker, potentially, we also have finishing techniques that involve finishing seasonings. So, you have a situation where if you didn't put enough seasoning onto this, hopefully you taste this before you put it give it to the judges. And at that point in time, you can still adjust the seasonings, okay? And we certainly do that in the moment, for the moment, okay? But once you over season it or get too much salt on it, it's like burning a cream soup. You can't go back. So just make sure that there's a nice even distribution of the seasoning from end to end. We like to oil first. Some people like to rub it with mustard first. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 1,000 different recipes. There's more techniques being developed. I just like to kind of like be one with the pork itself, and most of the times I can feel it and see it and smell it, and that's the kind of stuff that gets us fired up with barbecue. Okay, so we got nice even distribution of dry rub around the edges. At this point in time, you would want to, it can, obviously it's probably going to sit for 8 hours or so, if possible. If not, this is where you want to make sure that we have stoked the fire. Your temperatures are where you want to be from a smoking standpoint. Your wood is situated where the smoke is coming out and it's flowing onto that meat like from an optimal state, okay? And then it's basically every hour we're opening the door, we're doing a little watermelon apple juice spritzer and checking the coals, checking the wood, checking the temperature. It's a continuous. If you're working with a offset and potentially a stick burner, they call them, kind of old school, but it's every hour on the hour that you have to maintain that temperature. So we don't open the door unless it's on that hour that we're looking for. Okay. Obviously you need to know your smoker. Placement of that product is essential because there's a hot spot and there's a cold spot. So, make sure you put it on that sweet spot that it's going to allow for this caramelization to develop. And certainly the blend of, here in Kansas City, or pretty much I like to blend charcoal and wood together. Apple wood has always done me right. We dabble with cherry wood, pecan wood. Sometimes if it's cold and windy outside, I'll bring some oak and I'll create some coals with oak. Finish with some apple wood. There's a bunch of techniques for flavoring from a smoking standpoint. I'm a firm believer that at one point in time, this piece of meat can only absorb so much, and at that point in time is when we tend to kind of slow down from a heat standpoint, and now we're looking to sustain, and from a competition standpoint, we're looking at that at the finish line, at what time this needs to go up. Where is my temperature? How does it look? And how much time do I still have left in order to turn that product in? So there's some fine tuning that's going on from this point. Okay.
So when to reiterate what Russ is saying is when you're smoking and you put your dry rub on there and that smoke starts to, enter into the meat, right? It'll absorb only so much smoke flavor and so much. And then, we put, and to go into the different things that we put into our spice rubs, I'm a firm believer, I always have put sugar of some sort into the rub. Not a lot. You don't want it to be so much sugar in there that the rub will burn on the protein, but we want to have enough in there that it will seal it. This is where we get into, we have to think about, we're chefs and we cook and we know how to cook and braise, and barbecue is almost the same thing. I mean, we're trying to do the same technique. We want the meat to be cooked exactly the same, just like if we're braising a brisket or we're gonna, braise a piece of pork. The same thing is going on. The difference is instead of us searing the meat off in advance, right, we're letting the meat sit in the smoker and with the pores open from the seasoning rub and absorb that smoke and that flavor, and then the caramelization, the heat caramelizes that sugar and does the sealing for us, right? And that holds in the juices. So we're doing a reverse sear, right, where we're doing this. And then what we do in Kansas City a lot, and you saw me in the back here, where we take apple juice, right? This could be with watermelon in it. We take our barbecue sauce and we glaze it, or we have a glaze that we put on there. A lot of times we use butter and honey and apple juice, right? And we glaze it so that when the bark starts to break a little bit, and instead of it spitting the moisture of the meat out, we reseal that. We're resealing that to keep that moisture in, right? And we want to bring that meat to a certain temperature, and we can discuss that. Like, everybody has a different, feeling of what that is. But somewhere for pork, around 184 degrees is where we stop. And then with carryover cooking, we want it to go 198, something like this. And then we want it to rest, right? And then we want it to rest. And after that, we can reheat, slice. If you're in your restaurant, if you're doing this in an operation, this is exactly the same thought process, right? You can bring it right to that point. And then later on, I have some samples of how to do this for a little bit more. We talk about, global and what is contemporary barbecue. Contemporary also, in my opinion, means how do we process, how are we contemporary in providing barbecue in our restaurants, in our operations to the public, and not have a big, huge smoker outside and be a barbecue establishment. We can do this in other ways. So, but we want to bring the meat temperature up to that degree, and then we let it rest, right? So if we're in our restaurant, we can totally let it rest. We can portion it, right? We can shred it. We can turn it into whatever we're going to turn it into and have that ready to go and then reheat to order, right? For the barbecue and competition, we then take that and we want to, like Russ talked before, the timing so that when it rests and when it's done resting, it's ready to slice and then ready to serve, right? Based on whatever our timing is. So anyway, and then, when we talk about the sauce, for this particular recipe today, I infused kind of a Asian curry where I took some onion, garlic, caramelized it off, and then made like a Indian type of a gravy. And then I blended that style with my barbecue sauce. So, and with the seasoning spice rub too, heavy in paprika normally, because we want to have this mahogany color. Right? And the paprika gives us that mahogany color that we look for from a competition standpoint, but also as recognizable around the United States as what is good barbecue. When it has that, you can see that. And paprika is a good. Now, paprika, right, a type of chili pepper. So we could add and mix in different types of chili peppers if we want to go, from different types of chilies from Mexico to different types of Asia to India to, all the different places that we can apply those and be a little bit more spicy. This recipes today are a bit spicier than probably we would do for competition. Competition is pretty much, you want to be middle of the road, for that. Definitely a little bit sweeter than some places and other cultures would have when you do a global style in there. So, but yeah. I think Russ wants to talk about, we're going to talk about the smoke and how these smokers run. So Russ, you want to stoke these?
Yeah. So really, smoke can make you or break you all the way. I mentioned earlier that we utilized apple quite a bit. Applewood has how do you say it? It's an easy smoke, and if you think that we're going to cook straight wood, then even an easy wood would create a bitter product. So too much smoke creates bitter texture on the outside. Therefore, we enhance that with some charcoal. Sometimes we make our own charcoal out of just burning some oak that we have. If you're sitting by the campsite watching your smoker and get distracted, that most of the times that's where the bad things happen. I've noticed that sitting by the campsite and watching my smoke, even the velocity that it's rolling out of the smoker tells me if the smoker is purring or if it's angry. The color of the smoke. There's a little bit of light blue, not really dense smoke that I look for. I look for it to roll out real easy. And there's also been times where the smoke is really dense. It turns brown or even dark gray. And what was happening in my smoker is I had flames in the firebox. Flames in the firebox are going to change the color of your bark at the end of the day. So, there's dry wood, there's seasoned wood, and there's fresh wood. We definitely like to recommend trying a seasoned wood that is not going to flame up or flare up as often as dry wood is. It's a culprit of, it just turns your bark dark, it turns it black. And we're looking for the burgundy color, which that burgundy color just soaks into that smoke ring, and when we slice this, you'll see the smoke ring penetration in there. The heat penetration that's why it's important for the temperature of the smoker to be up and rolling when you put this product on, because that smoke ring, seasonings, heat, all of that have to do with the pork money muscle accepting that smoked product. Okay.
Yeah, so if we look at our smokers back here, I was just stoking them. So we have two smokers, and the reason is, one of them is we wanted to show you bad smoke, right? So we got this one over here. We don't have anything on it because we were burning stuff. And so we have some wood that's harsh. Maybe wood that you might use on a grill. Like if you're going to grill things, right? To have that type of wood, you have just a few moments in time to get the flavor in there. So you might have a harsher wood like this. So, but you can see here, right, we have this kind of dark smoke here coming out, right? I don't know if you can see it on the TV or not, but here I can see that it's, gray. It's almost green looking, right? Whereas our other smoker over here that we have rolling along, you can barely see any smoke come out. Right? And they're both at the same temperature, right? But we have this one monitored. So a lot of times what I do is I'll get ourselves going with coal and I'll put my fruit wood in there right from the beginning. Apple, cherry, I like a mix of those. He likes apple, I like apple too. I like a little cherry. Cherry gives a little bit more mahogany color. So I like that. But then I cut it off. And I want to go to sustaining the temperature as even as possible. So a lot of times I move straight to oak. And I'll have oak logs that are big, they burn long, they burn solid for a long time. And so I don't have to stoke my fire all the time, right? And then I feed it with some coals while that log burns, right? Just feed the side of it, a little bit of coal while that log burns, and I ride at my temperature. I mean, we talk about it, but today's a good day. But if it's 95 degrees outside and the sun's blaring, it's way different than if you're trying to barbecue and it's 55 degrees outside and windy. So you have to think about that too. So sometimes your wood and your coal mixes gets way different depending upon what you are, how you have it. If you have, if you're in a restaurant operation and you have the controlled environment, it's way easier to be consistent and know what that mix is and train your people how to do that. But outside, there's a lot of variables. So we also have this reverse, like I said, in Kansas City, we do this offset smoking a lot more, where we have the fire here. In other areas of the country, they might cook under coals only. So they might have the coals totally underneath their meat product with a lid on there, right? And so they're not burning it. They're burning the wood, the coals in another location right next to it, and then they take a shovel and they move it over. We have to build it a little bit differently. So we're feeding that right into the firebox. So we're really trying to work to make sure we don't have a flare up, but also we don't to have a little bit more of a flame is not going to burn our meat directly because it's offset. So our meat's way over here. Although with this particular smoker, you have to figure out when your hot spot is. And this one here, because of the reverse, it's really here. It seems like it would be odd that so far away. Normally you would think that this area is going to be your hot spot, right? Or maybe up here, those two places. Because if that smoker is here, that's usually how it flows. But in this particular smoker, it's right there because of this reverse. So that really pulls hard and heavy. So right here gets the most heat. So it's slightly different.
What do you think? Do you think we should cut into these and see how we're looking? We've got some items. We've created recipes. We've created some fun things to show. Unfortunately, all of us are not going to be able to taste. But I'll tell you what. This is what keeps us. This is what summer's all about in Kansas City, and I could be tired as a dog working all weekend, and still have time to fire up the smoker and put some food on.
Yeah. So you can look at these pieces now. What I've also done, right, is we could take it to this point, and then hand me one of those over there. And so then also, like if you had this in your restaurant, right, we could crowd back and see. I know there's kind of a trend to be away from single-use plastics, and I understand that. And so, but we could do this, right, where we have it, we portion it. It's just like this. We put a little sauce on it, and then we have it in here, and it's ready to go. Barbecue has a tendency to be fairly expensive because of all the different costs, the seasonings, the rubs, the sauce. And so, but we could take that, rewarm it on our grill, and then we have our sauce that goes with it right there.
Chef Adel, you just mentioned something about sauces and spices, and I did have a question that came through on sauces and spices.
Yeah.
So sometimes, as you mentioned, some people will make their own spice blends and sauces, but other people will purchase them ahead of time and have ones that are pre-mixed or pre-made. Do you have any suggestions for the crowd on where they might find some more information on getting those items?
Spice.
The World Wide Web.
Yeah,
I think they call that www.
Here in Jacksonville, Florida, you can go to Ace Hardware now and you can get Cosmo Q stuff if you want to. Or Meat Church, it's interesting. It's so available now, right?
Yeah. But my suggestion there is to look at. So like, if we look into the people that we're going to have for our conference in October, right? So you got people like Smoke on Wheel, Smoke and Magic, Plowboys. These guys are world champions, right? Q39, world champions. These guys have spices and rubs and sauces that are proven to work. So I would look at that. Go to the KCBS, look up who those champions are, look at their stuff. You can probably find their rubs, buy them over the internet somewhere. So that would be my suggestion of what to do or how to do that. Does that make sense, Chris?
That absolutely makes sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you can see here, we took this, right? So I took our pork collar, right? This money muscle, and I smoked it, I got our sauce there. Our sauce, I told you how we made that. And we got a little bit of a watermelon, compressed watermelon with compressed onion, right? Very fresh, refreshing to go with it, with our salad with a little bit of arugula. And then so when you trim up the pork, you have those little pieces that are on the side. It's still good, tasty. You can surely use it for sausage. But what I did is chop it up, and then I marinated it, and then I tossed it and made like a slaw with that meat in there, an Asian slaw, which we put some toasted peanuts, some crispy rice, cilantro, mint. So very summertime fresh with cabbage, red onion. So it works out really good. So when you have barbecue, you have to think about it. We want to try and see, and we see people that are moving into fine dining rooms with some of the stuff, but we have to keep in mind of what barbecue is. It's fatty, right? It's really flavorful. it really clogs our palate. So the accompaniments are very important, that we have things that are acidic, fresh, refreshing, so that we can have those to help, with our palate when we're eating these type of products. So then, so that's that dish. The other dish that I did, right, for this is one that's slightly different. So I took the top part of the blade here, right, which you can see, and I wear this white glove underneath because I got old and my hands hurt. And before, I used to be able to grab the meat when it was hot and it didn't matter. Now it does. So anyway, but we can see here we got this, and then we can take this and we can just make a nice slice, and you can see, right, how juicy and moist it is. We got all that fat in there, right? So it reminded me of like a Korean bacon where you grill it off. And so I made a little bit of a sauce here. So green curry sauce, right? I took those pieces just like that, put them in potato starch, and then wok fried them. Okay? And then we have a little bit of our green curry sauce here, right? Thai green curry, which there's a recipe for. It's very simple to make. Okay? And then a few pieces of my pork, right? Nice and crispy. I got a little bit of compressed ginger, green onions, and red pepper, right? A little wok fried green onions here, right? And then I have my little, I made a little garlic chili glaze, fish sauce, honey, and we just put that around, drizzle that around. All right, I think we're gonna get out of here just before the rain. All right, so those are the two things, those are the two ways in which we took what is Kansas City barbecue, what is, barbecue that, we've spent years with, competition, perfecting, and moved them with the same philosophies of building the spice rub, the sauces, right? And changed that a little bit and added it into some side dishes and other things, from a global standpoint, to hopefully, see how, we can bring regular type barbecue to a more upscale type of a restaurant. So.
Yeah, and that's really the thing that makes it so universal then. They can do it in Florida, they can do it in Cuba, they can do it in Taiwan, anywhere. Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. It looks like we might want to have some samples here pretty soon. You guys ready to eat?
I'm trying to figure out how you ship samples down to Florida here, because we do have a lot of barbecue here in Jacksonville, Florida, but it's not Kansas City barbecue. What I think is really cool what you guys did though is you took that traditional sense of barbecue and turned it into something that's very modern. I think could fit into any restaurant now, and that's what we're seeing a lot in restaurants now. Are these modern takes on it? It's not just Kansas City style; it's all that. So these plates are amazing, chefs.
I'm glad you liked it. Is there any other questions out there? Anybody have anything they want to ask before we get rained out here? It's starting to.
Yeah, you're getting rained out there. So I'll ask a few quick questions here. So here's a perennial question that comes in all the time. What are the different types of wood that you like to use for the different types of protein? So say fish, beef, pork, and veggies. What's your favorite woods?
Okay, so if I'm going to do something for fish and vegetables, which is a much quicker cooking time, I usually use a little bit more flavorful style wood. So I might use something like hickory, mesquite, pecan, these type of things, that because you don't have a lot of time to get the smoke flavor into them. If I use those for a longer smoking time, a lot of times that might become bitter or over smoked. So and then what was the other one for beef?
Yeah, beef and vegetables as well.
Yeah, well, for fish and vegetables, I try to use one that's harder. So, but for beef, I still go back to the same, just like pork, these larger formatted pieces of meat, I try to use apple, with a touch of cherry and a good charcoal.
Yeah, I've got an interesting one to throw at you, because I've seen Kentucky mutton barbecue. What would you throw at mutton?
So yeah, mutton is I'll tell you, it's kind of funny because I just spoke with Brie Villa, who is Smoking Magic, and she's going to Australia this month to cook lamb. Not, younger than mutton, but to cook lamb in competition. She got invited to Australia. But I think, again, mutton's a little bit strong, so I'm going to do the same things I'm going to do if I was going to cook it, in a regular restaurant or operation. I'm going to, probably plug it with some garlic and try and get some of those flavors. I would probably use harder spices, ones that are, cardamom, clove, the things that are going to help, intensify the mutton flavor. And then from a wood standpoint, for sure, I would probably use a little bit heavier of a flavored wood to try and help that. Pecan, to me, I like pecan. I always tend to feel like mesquite is a little bit more for grilling than it is for long-term smoking formats. So
makes sense. Yeah, and that is the last question we have. So one of the things and this is not in my script, and I'm going to go off script because one of the things I want to tell all the members that are part of this conversation is that Chef Adel and the team over there are actually working on a Mastercraft Summit for this fall. We've got a whole schedule together for it finally, and you're going to start seeing the information for that come out soon. So I really truly want to thank both of you chefs for everything you've done in here today. So I'm as both know, I love barbecue. I'm extremely jealous right now, and Jacksonville does have a lot of barbecue restaurants, but none quite like you guys are able to do. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the fall up there and having some amazing barbecue again. So,
all right,
Summer's here. Fire up.
Yeah, well, I used to come out there for when I worked for Campbell Soup Company. I used to purposely go out to Kansas State to go do our testing for our products because we could get all the barbecue out there as well. So it's so awesome. I appreciate both of you.
Nice.
All right, so we'll close out here. I appreciate both of you, and a huge virtual round of applause for both Chef Edward Adel and Chef Russ for this awesome, informative presentation. We appreciate you taking the time to share your important insights on modern barbecue trends to both of you. It's really great info. I appreciate it. Thank you as well to today's webinar sponsor, the Watermelon Promotional Board. Please be on the lookout for the survey you'll receive in the next day or so, which you'll need to complete to get your continuing education hours. And we hope you'll join us in the next webinar, which is actually going to be tomorrow on the 16th, sponsored by Beef Checkoff, as they present our new menu items and explore current flavor trends in beef dishes. Then on May 29th, ACF Chef Greg Boggs will be closing out our May trend as he presents and elevating the barbecue with global flavors again. So thank you to all of you, and happy to see you all, and I hope you all enjoy your day. And chefs, keep dry out there, okay?